Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, my dear respected viewers. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in the book of Nurul Idah by Al-Imam Hasan Shugun Bulali in Fiqh of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our lesson, make it a reason our sins are forgiven, prayers are answered, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah bless us with iman and taqwa, ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. So inshallah, we straight away enter into the book. In our last lesson, we were speaking about the types of wudu in terms of its ruling. So the author mentioned there are three. One is fard, and then we have wajib and mandub. Fard, wajib, mandub, and we have mentioned all these situations where the author speaks about the rulings whether wudu is obligatory or wajib or mandub. So now inshallah ta'ala we go on to the next chapter where he mentioned faslun fi nawaqidil wudu. So this is one of the important chapters in the wudu that speaks about the things that nullify the ablution. So in the Hanafi madhab, as what we can see, it is extensively mentioned on this in this chapter where the author mentioned yunkidul wudu'a ithna ashara shay'a, the things that makes wudu invalidated, there are 12 things, ithna ashara. So this is again those who have studied the fiqh of Imam al-Shafi'i, the things that nullifies wudu in the madhab of Shafi'i, and it's only 4. But here in the Hanafi madhab, it is mentioned there are 12, although certain things that are mentioned here can be combined into one principle. That's what we will see later. But certainly it is more extensive than what we have studied in Fiqh Shafi'i. So let us enter into these 12 things. The 12 things that makes wudu nullify. Number 1, ma kharaja minas sabilain. This is the same thing that we mentioned in Fiqh Shafi'i. Anything that comes out from as-sabilain. As-sabilain is the qubul and dubur. It is the front and the back private parts. The front and the back private parts, of both the male and female. So anything that comes out of the private parts nullify wudu. So ma here, this is lil umum. Then it is in the universal, and it takes universal meaning. So anything, whether it is najis or non-najis, anything that comes out from the sabilain, whether it is something that usually comes out or unusually comes out. For example, some of the fuqaha mention if a person swallow metal, and then after that the metal came out from his private part, it nullifies wudu, although metal is pure. But the fact that it comes out from the private parts, it makes the ablution invalidated. So here anything that comes out from the private parts invalidates the wudu. But there is an exception, he mentioned illa rihal qubul, except that air that comes out from the front private part, whether from the female or from the male. So this is based on the prevailing judgment in madhab Hanafi that it does not nullify the ablution. And this is important, and especially for women who are facing difficulty in in controlling the air that comes out from the front private part, that is from the vagina, for example, because this usually some women have some of these issues, pertaining to men. It is almost unlikely that and it can come out from the penis, but when it comes into the vagina, it is a different issue. And one of the arguments of the Hanafi scholars that they mentioned that this does not nullify the wudu, for the fact that usually the air that appears to come out from the frontal private part, it is just at the surface. It is just at the surface of the air that is present. So it is not anymore from the internal aspect. But even in this opinion, if it comes from the internal aspect, this is excuse. This is something that is not the norm. So in the Hanafi and madhab, it carries a later ruling. When it comes to the Shafi'i and madhab, of course, we do not make such differentiation. Anything that comes out from the private parts invalidates the ablution. But here, this is a way out, for those who are having difficulty, yes, what I mentioned. So this is point number 1. Number 2, wa najasatun sa'ilatun min ghayrihima kadamin wa qayhin. the thing any that nullifies any ablution is a filth any that is flowing. Min ghayrihima. Hima goes back into qubul and dubur. Meaning, if there is najis, there is any a filth that flows out any from the body, other than the anus and the frontal any private part, any the private parts any basically, this any makes any the ablution invalidated. So the author any gives an example, kadam wa qayh. For example, any a person is bleeding. A person any is bleeding. For example, any the arm any is bleeding. The arm is bleeding, and the blood flows. The blood flows. So that is why the author mentions sa'ilah najasatun. Blood any is najis. Blood is a filth. Sa'ilah, and it is flowing. If the blood any that comes out any from the body of a person and it is flowing, and this is other than anything that comes out any from the private parts, now this makes any the wudu invalidated. This makes the wudu invalidated. But any if the blood does not flow, meaning a person any has a cut but the blood any does not flow, this does not invalidate the wudu. Likewise, any qayh any is the pulse any from injury. If the pulse any flows just like any blood, because all these things are najis. All these things are najis. So the opposite of najis are pure things. Pure things any like what you call it, our tears. Our tears any is pure. It does not make wudu invalidated. Likewise, our sweat. Our sweat is also something any that comes out from our body and that is sa'ilah, that is flowing, but it is not a filth. So it does not any makes wudu invalidated. So the point here that the author is speaking any about, any point number one, any it must be a filth. Point number two, that it is flowing, not any at its place. If the filth like pulse or blood does not flow, then it does not any invalidate the ablution. So this is point number two. Number three, وَيُنْقِضُهُ وِلَادَةٌ مِنْ غَيْرِ رُؤْيَةِ دَمٍ. Number three, any if a woman delivers any a child, after pregnancy, give birth any to a child. So the giving birth any of a child invalidates any the wudu, although there is no blood, although nothing any from filth or postnatal bleeding that comes out any from the private part. So imagine any a child, any an infant, a baby that is born without any postnatal bleeding. Does this any invalidate any the wudu? Yes, this any invalidates any the wudu, because this comes any under the principle that something comes out any from the private part, and a child any is part any of something. So it invalidates any the wudu, even though there is no postnatal bleeding. What more any if there is any postnatal bleeding, the wudu it becomes invalidated. Point number four, وَقَيْءُ طَعَامٍ. Yani if a person vomits. So in the Hanafi madhab, and we need to pay attention to this. In the Hanafi and madhab, vomiting invalidates the ablution, but there is a condition. What kind of vomit any that makes wudu any invalidated? If it is overwhelming any in a sense that you cannot control it with your mouth. That if you were to collate any the vomit any without flowing, you are unable to do so, meaning it will burst. And it will still come out any from your mouth. In this situation, the wudu becomes invalidated. But if it is slight vomit, in a sense that you can control any with your mouth, it does not invalidate the wudu. So either vomiting of food, ta'am. This is what the author mentioned. Qay'u ta'am, aw ma, or water that you have drunk, and then after that it comes out any again. This also invalidates any wudu if it is overwhelming. Wa alaq any is a kind any of a blood any that is black any in color. Aw miratin, this is part any of something any that has that comes out any from the body. Idah mala al-fam any meaning it fills up any the mouth, meaning you cannot control it any from not any coming out, then it becomes any invalidated. Wa huwa ma la yutbiqu alayhi al-famu illa bitakalluf, except that you need to really takalluf yani meaning you put in the pressure, then it doesn't come out. Now in this situation, the wudu any becomes any invalidated, because it can any come out any if you do not any put in any the pressure as such. Alal asah, and this is based any on the prevailing any judgment any in the madhab of Imam any Abu Hanifa, as mentioned by the author here. So vomiting in the Hanafi madhab invalidates wudu with the condition that this vomit any is overwhelming. As far as the vomiting any is a minor vomit where it does not any cover the whole mouth, it does not any invalidate the wudu. So when it comes into vomiting, and we have to look any at these aspects. Then he mentioned وَيُجْمَعُ مُتَفَرِقُ الْقَيْءِ إِذَا اتَّحَزَ سَبَبُهُ, and this is the opinion of Al-Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani. And for those who are following any this class, put a note there. This is the opinion of Al-Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani in the opposition of the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. What he mentioned, he said that if a person vomits, but he vomits a bit, this is mutafarraq, a bit, it is not in one go. But if you were to collate the vomit, it can be overwhelming, in a sense, covers in the whole mouth. Then, according to this opinion, the vomiting invalidates any the wudu if the vomit is from the same cause. Yani, is from the same cause, meaning he vomits just 5 minutes ago. He vomits just 5 minutes ago. So within this 5 minutes, there is a series of vomits. So it is a minor vomit for each time, but it is the same cause that he is vomiting in the same sitting. So in this situation, if you to collate the vomit, it can be overwhelming in such that it covers the mouth, and you have to put in pressure to prevent the vomit from coming out of the mouth. This also invalidates the ablution. And as I mentioned, this is the opinion of Al-Imam Muhammad al-Shaybani in opposition to the opinion of Al-Imam Abu Hanifa. And the author mentioned the opinion of Imam Muhammad in Nur al-Idah. Number 5, وَدَمٌ غَلَبَ عَلَى الْبُزَاقِ أَوْ سَوَاهُ. This is pertaining to blood, blood that comes out. Blood that comes out that is a lot. How do we know it is a lot? So he gave an example if it is more than the saliva. So for example, if a person is bleeding in the mouth, a person is bleeding in the mouth. So the blood that comes out from the mouth, if you were to look at the amount of blood and the amount of saliva, if the amount of the blood supersedes the amount of saliva, the wudu becomes invalidated. Or it is the same, aw sawahu. The author mentioned 50% any blood, 50% any saliva. So in this situation, the wudu becomes invalidated. But if the blood is slight, in a sense, then if you look at the saliva, you cannot see the traces of blood, or maybe you can see just a bit of the traces of blood. Now we say the saliva is more than the blood. So in this situation, it does not invalidate the wudu. The same thing from the case of nose bleeding. If the bleeding is minimal, it does not invalidate the wudu. But if the bleeding is a lot, it invalidates the wudu. Number 6, وَنَوْمٌ لَمْ تَتَمَكَّنْ فِيهِ الْمَقْعَدَةُ مِنَ الْأَرْضِ. This is pertaining to sleeping. Sleeping invalidates ablution, but with the condition that the back of the person is not firm on the ground. This also in the Shafi Madhab also we speak about this. So there are similarities between us and the Hanafis. When a person is sleeping, if the back is firm on the ground, what is the meaning the back is firm on the ground? Meaning no air can come out. And if a person is sitting down and he causes any pressure on his anus, for example, the air cannot come out. We say this is mutamakkinun alal ard. Mutamakkin. That means that it is firm in a way that if he is sleeping also, there is no chance any air can come out. But if a person is laying down flat on his back, then the wudu becomes invalidated even in his sleeps for a moment, because there is a possibility that air can come out, regardless whether the air really came out or does not. But because of the possibility of the air that can come out when a person in such a situation, the wudu becomes invalidated, unless if mutamakkin, that's what we mentioned, that if the body of a person is firm on the ground, then the wudu will not be invalidated. So this point number 6. Number 7, he mentioned وَارْتِفَاعُ مَقْعَدَةِ نَائِمٍ قَبْلَ انْتِبَاهِهِ وَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْقُطْ. A person is sleeping, and then before he wakes up from the sleep, he changed the position of his sitting in a way that it is not firm on the ground. So the author mentioned qabla intibahi, before he wakes up from the sleep. If that happens, then the wudu becomes invalidated, even though the position himself is such that he does not fall from it. Wa illam lam yasqut. So for example, if I'm sitting down like this, my back is firm on the ground. But if I do like this, if I sleep and I do like this, my back now is exposed. So there is a possibility that air can come out, from my private parts. So in this situation, my wudu becomes invalidated, even though my inclination like this does not make me fall on the ground. But because it is enough for the private part to be exposed, then the wudu becomes invalidated. طيب, this is what the author mentioned. وارتفاع مقعدة نائم قبل انتباهه وإن لم يسقط في الظاهر. And this is the opinion in the madhab, as what in the ta'liq mentioned. واعتمد في دور المختار أنه لا ينقض. There is differences in the madhab. The author in Dور al-Mukhtar mentioned that it does not nullify the ablution, but according to the prevailing judgment in the madhab of Hanafi, that it invalidates the wudu because of the possibility. So it is important for us to understand this, because of the possibility of air to come out from the private part. That is why it invalidates the wudu. But what happens if ba'da intiba, for example, if a person, for example, after he woke up from his sleep, he changed the position. Now, this does not invalidate wudu. Based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, al-aynan wika usah. The Prophet mentioned that the eyes is the seal of the anus. Meaning, as long as a person is awake, he knows what comes out from his anus. So this does not invalidate the wudu. Number 8, irma. Any person is fainting. Fainting invalidates wudu because a person does not know, that is not conscious of himself. So if there is a possibility of air coming out, he will not feel it. Likewise, when a person in a state of insanity. Insanity also loss of consciousness. The same ruling as loss of consciousness. Likewise, drunkenness, sukr. When a person is drunk in the sense that he lost his consciousness, then this invalidates wudu. But if a person is not drunk and he just by drinking liquor does not invalidate the wudu. Just by drinking liquor does not invalidate the wudu. What invalidates the wudu? If a person come into a state of drunkenness, in a sense that he lost his consciousness. So fainting, becoming insane, drunkard, becoming drunk and sleeping. All these things invalidates wudu, because of the possibility that this person lost their consciousness, and the possibility of them doing things that invalidates the wudu without them realizing, because their mind is not functioning. So that is why it invalidates the wudu. And then number 11, and this is important for us to take note in the Hanafi madhab, laughing laughing a lot in prayers makes wudu invalid. Laughing a lot in prayers. So this is a thing, and we have to pay attention. There's a difference between laughing aloud in prayers and outside prayers. What invalidates ablution? If a person laughs aloud in prayers. This invalidates ablution. So if it invalidates ablution, it invalidates the prayer. So the ablution is invalidated, then the person has to take wudu again. طيب. What is the meaning of qahqaha? Here the author mentioned وَقَهْقَهَةُ مُصَلٍّ بَالِغٍ. A person must be baligh, not sabi. Not a person, a child that has not reached puberty, but he is baligh. And qahqaha is, the definition of qahqaha is laughing where people around you can hear your voice. So for example, if I'm laughing and people around me can hear my voice, this is qahqaha. So it is not necessary to be very loud, but loudness in a sense that people around you can hear your laughter. But if you laugh in a way that only you can hear yourself, this does not invalidate the ablution in prayers. But your prayer becomes invalidated because words come out from your mouth that invalidates the prayer. But your wudu does not invalidate it if you are not laughing aloud in the sense that people around you can hear your laughter. And this is in prayers, that's what I mentioned. That is why the author mentioned qahqahatu musallin, yani a musalli, and a person who's doing any prayer, laughs in prayer loudly, in a sense people around him and he hears him, and he must be baligh and not sabi. That's what we mentioned, reach puberty. Yaqadan fi salatin zati ruku'in wa sujudin, yani in a way that he knows what you call it, he's conscious of himself, and he is in a prayer that has ruku' and sujud. Why the author mentioned ruku' and sujud? Because when it comes to janaza prayers and sujud tilawah, this does not invalidate the what you call it, this does not invalidate the janaza prayers, and also the sujud tilawah. Walau ta'ammad al-khuruj biha min as-salah, even though he makes the intention and he doesn't want to continue praying, the wudu becomes invalidated. طيب. And then number 12, and he mentioned وَمَسُّ فَرْجٍ بِذَكَرٍ مُنْتَصِبٍ بِلَا حَائِلٍ. طيب, this is interesting in the Hanafi madhab. Hanafi madhab, and they mentioned that touching any man and woman without mahram does not invalidate wudu. That's why you don't see any within any this 12 that speaks any about touching any skin to skin between a man and a woman non-mahram. Because in the Hanafi madhab, regardless whether the shahwa, no shahwa, if you touch any the body any of your wife, any for example, it does not any invalidate wudu. But there is one situation that invalidates wudu that we have to pay attention. If yani the penis any of someone, for example a husband, which is halal, yani husband and wife, any halal relationship, the penis any of a husband touches the vagina or the private parts any basically of the wife. The penis any of a husband that is hard. The penis any of the husband that is hard. This is the meaning of muntasab. Yani muntasab, when it is hard, and the penis any that is hard. Where meaning there is arousal, there is sexual arousal. And if it touches any the private part, like the vagina for example, bila ha'ilin, without any barrier, meaning skin to skin, this any invalidates the wudu. And again, this is the opinion of Al-Imam Muhammad Al-Shaybani. Naam. طيب. So now we have reached the end of what you call it, this chapter yani of the things that nullify in the wudu. Inshallah, in our next lesson, we are going to speak about the things that does not nullify the ablution. This is what the author mentioned. Faslun fima la yunqidul wudu. The author wants us to have a deeper understanding and to differentiate what are the things that invalidate any wudu and what are the things that does not invalidate the wudu. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.